I am so happy that you are all here this evening. So welcome, and a huge welcome. So this is our first of the Good Talk series for year 2, in partnership with the Council of Fashion Designers of America. I am deeply grateful to Stephen, I don't know where you are back there, Sarah, Sasha, of the CFDA. Every time we have conversations with you, for me personally, it's extremely inspiring and for all of us. So I just want you to know how grateful we are to you all. There you are, Stephen. So we launched Good Talks last April to bring together emerging and established designers, industry guests, press, and more to have thoughtful, open dialogue with experts on the importance of sustainability principles, of which, as we all know, there are many. The series is built upon theory's belief that unifying as an industry and educating is a key to imparting actionable change. We've invited you all here to create a space and a platform to come together, to educate each other, and not only discuss the sustainability issues, but to brainstorm solutions. It is imperative for all of us to work together to find solutions. I think we all realize that it's becoming more and more important every day. Sorry, I decided to read this time instead of memorize. Last year, the series was built on education. We're still going to be educating this time, but what we really want to have happen is we really want, there to be some actionable change that we can be creating together. And so what we'd like to do is, after we have this session, then we're going to have another session that I'm going to talk about in one moment, but at the end there'll be a networking session. So go up to somebody you've never met before, talk about some maybe solutions, talk about some issues. Maybe there's a way that we could be creating some change as we move forward. There's a lot of people in this space, not just the circularity space, which you're going to hear about this evening, but also in all the other sustainability areas that are doing some really exciting, wonderful things. So how can we move it forward? How can we really make things move? One of the things I've done is taken one of my clothes, which happens to be a theory pant, made it into a skirt. I have a lot of pants. I don't have a skirt that looks like this, and I'm so excited about it. So anyway, so that's kind of, what we really want this to be. So also, the second half of this presentation is going to be a conversation that with Dean Sideway, Professor Sideway, and Pratt, and the MFA students, because what they did was they took some of Theory's materials and Theory's garments that were all damaged, and they upcycled them. Now, you see them behind me, as a matter of fact, on all these mannequins, and so the students are here, scattered throughout, and he's going to present the whole concept to you and what we did with Pratt, which I think is a really exciting thing. So that'll be a little bit later in this. The next thing is really, why are we here, and what is the topic, sustainability topic for today? Well, it's Circularity Considered. I love that name, actually. And there's many different facets to circularity. There's upcycling, recycling, recycled fibers, all kinds of things, and we're going to be talking about that today. But just to kind of level set this, there's only one statistic that I'm going to talk about that really caught my attention over the last number of weeks, and I still think about it every time I think about circularity. We make 100 billion items a year. Think about the number, okay? We have 8.2 billion people in the world. Do the math, And the following year, we make another 100 billion items a year. Now, it's an estimated number. I keep reading it everywhere. I keep thinking, is that really the right number? But if we keep making more and more clothes, and we still only have 8.2 billion people, and we're not changing all the people, you can just imagine how much we're producing. So how do we solve all that? And this is a conversation that we'll be able to start talking about it. I love clothes. I love to buy new things. I also love to recreate what I have. How do we deal with this? These are questions that we don't have a lot of all the answers to yet. But I think the more we pull together, the more we talk to each other, the more we communicate, the more we ideate, we are going to find those solutions. And this is one way for us to do that. So I am really, really pleased and proud to present to you our panel for this evening. All right, I'd first like to introduce you to Indre Rockefeller, a climate communicator, entrepreneur, and founder of the Circularity Project, a nonprofit dedicated to championing circular design in fashion with the goal of sparking creative approaches to reducing the industry's environmental footprint. That's exactly what we're talking about today. She's also the co-founder of Paravel, where she oversaw award-winning sustainable design. So glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Natalie Chanin. She's an artist, designer, author, and advocate for sustainability whose work celebrates community, craft, and environmental stewardship. As the founder and creative director of Alabama Chanin, the School of Making, and Project Threadways, she has spent over 30 years redefining fashion through handcraft and responsible design. Natalie is a prolific author, a recipient of the CFDA Lexus Eco Fashion Challenge Award, and Chanin continues to shape and move more thoughtful, sustainable future for design. So I think we've got some good conversations today about how do you design thinking about circularity. Our last panelist is Marco Mantellassi. Marco Mantellassi. He is the CEO of Manteco, which is a fabric textile company based in Prato, Italy. He is the third generation of this amazing textile company. Manteco, the mill, was born in Prato in 1943, a time of war and widespread poverty. Its founder is Enzo Mantellassi, and began the business by regenerating wool from old military clothing and blankets, an activity marked by the need to waste nothing and to make a virtue of necessity, perhaps unaware that he had embarked on the path of a true industrial revolution, circular economy and recycling. Manteco has won a number of climate awards, the Climate Action Award in 2023, the Climate Project of the Year Award in 2024. So, welcome to our panelists. All right, now we're going to go into some questions, and we're going to talk about a number of different things. So let's get started. Now I'll sit down. So what does circularity mean to you? How do you define it, and what do you see as the different facets of it? And this is a question for all three of you. Let's start with you, Indre.
Okay. So I think when you start with what is circularity, one of the places to start is what is it not? So it's not linear, right?
That's a really good point. It isn't A, B, C, and then D. It's like
exactly. And so this idea that we operate right now, and it's not just fashion, it's a lot of industries, it's sort of the way a lot of things are structured. We operate in this linear take, make, waste model, right? Mm-hmm. So take means we extract. We make some, so that could be natural resources. We use up water, we grow cotton, whatever it is. We make something, and then it ends up as waste. And that's sort of the trajectory of the things that we make. And circularity challenges us, and I use the word challenge because it is fundamentally a systems thinking challenge, and it's one we're still all have to work on together. It's not an easy box check, but circularity really is about creating this circular model where things stay in existence. And those raw materials that we extract at the extract stage, how can we make the most out of those? How can we give them the longest life possible? So how do we make things that last longer? How do we make things that are made to be repaired, that are made to be reused? And at the end of life, how do we make things and choose inputs that will make them safely biodegrade so they can continue in this natural regenerative cycle? So I really think of circularity as a challenge at a systems level because it really requires so much cooperation and coordination. And I think about it as the difference between thinking about something from the point of sale, which we in the fashion industry often do, that point of interaction with the consumer, and thinking about also incorporating its point of end of life, so to speak, and how that all works in a system.
So it's like thinking about the item almost at the end of it, and then and almost, instead of just thinking about what it is now and I sell it and then I'm done, it's
Right.
thinking about well, where would the end be even after it goes through a number of cycles?
Right.
What would that end be?
And not thinking about the end at the end, but at the beginning.
Yeah, thinking about it
So
at the beginning.
it's like,
exactly.
what are the inputs that I put in? What are the materials? How do I design this? How do I use this? How can I reuse this? And then what happens to it at the end? What are the options for this end of life?
So there's one other point that I want to make, and I want everybody to be thinking about this. And then I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to go to Natalie. But this is an opportunity for us as an industry to really ideate and find these solutions that seem impossible. First of all, nothing's impossible. That's what I believe. And with that thinking, then I think that we can really create some new, systems that maybe didn't really exist before. Kind of like create a new method, a new way of generating income, a new way of creating revenue, a new way of everything, a new way of creating our world. So it really does take care of the world and ourselves. So it's like, as we go through this conversation, I think it's important for everybody to be thinking about all these things. And this was really a good opening. Thank you. Natalie.
So I can just give you our definition within the work that we're doing. And so, our work begins with farmers. So we think about the beginning being the soil and the end being the soil. And then there are all these steps along the way that contribute to a garment being able to go back to the soil. Now, some of our work is happening in real life, and some of it is aspirational. And, there's a lot of work still to be done in the industry, but each step of the way, for example, I see it as like when it goes from the farmer to the gin, there's a little circularity that happens there. There's little side bits that have to happen at each step of the way. And so there's a lot of pieces and parts, like the mills and the gins and all of the other things that go into that. But the highest possible goal for us would be to, make the fabric in the most ecologically friendly way, to use as much of the fabric as we can. We use lean method manufacturing, so we don't really make anything until it's ordered, so it keeps the fabric intact. Then we have like zero waste programs where we try to use the scraps of the fabric at that stage. And then you want to build products from the design phase where, hopefully they're living in the patron's closet for the rest of their life. But when it does, if you wear it and wash it, 1,000 times or however many times, there is an end of life. And in a best case scenario, you would be able to plant it, In a really best case scenario, it might have seeds in it that would then grow.
Wow.
From there. So.
Amazing, right? All of these ideas. I have more questions for you, Natalie, but we'll come back to that. There's like a lot of questions about what you just said. But Marco, why don't you? What does circularity mean to you?
First of all, Wendy, thank you so much for inviting me, and also our company Manteco, that you know for a long time, and I will do my best. English is not my first language. Of course, I'm from Italy, and we are. I am the CEO together with my brother in Manteco, and we are the third generation. I must say that we are lucky in this field of circularity, as my grandfather, Mr. Enzo Mantellassi, created around 1941 the first yarn coming from a wastage of a blanket. So during one of his trips to south of Italy, in Naples, in a small town called Resina, everybody was trying to repair old clothes and old blankets, as the weather was really cold and there was not so much, so much money around, so people could not afford to buy new clothes. In that moment, part of these clothes, a part of this blanket could not be repaired, so they were going to the landfill. And in that scenario, he had this idea to bring back one of these blankets to our city, small city, and using some British machinery, he was able to recycle this blanket into fibers, then into yarn, and then into fabric. So in the 1943, after 3 years, he created the mill, and we are, at the third generation, we implement a lot of the circularity. And I think that we are born circular, we are born lucky, because it's a very modern way to think about the business. And
I love when you talk about how you're born from a blanket. It's like, when you said that to me, I was thinking, wow, that's so cool. Because it's true. Manteca was born from a blanket. And the recycling, and you do an enormous amount of recycled material, recycled wool. I mean, that's what you do.
Recycle wool, recycle cashmere. We work also with recycled fiber in cotton, in linens. I think that really circularity is very, very important, but it's a very common word that is a little bit deep. It's not only to say we are circular. In order to be circular, you have to be reconvert the wastage into new material, but I believe this new material has to be beautiful, has to be better than what you found before. This is the only way we give the sense to the circularity. If you can upgrade, if you can do beautiful colors, in our experience, we don't dye any fiber. We just reuse what we find.
So you take, let's say, all different sweaters or other wools that it might be all in the camel beige family, and you put them together to create a new color. And
Yes.
I've seen this, and you take all the different kinds of
Yes.
blues and you create a new color out of what you get. So there's no dyeing involved.
There is no dyeing, absolutely no dyeing. When we use cashmere, when we use wool, we use post-consumer, which can be old sweater, old pants, or pre-consumer, which could be also scrap from production. And also with theory, we had some kind of circular approach with your business, taking back the scrap from the production that theory made with our fabric, and we could take it back, the scrap, to the mill and reconverted into new yarn and fibers and fabric.
As a matter of fact, what Marco's talking about is we took the scraps from one of our garments that we were making, and in fall 23, we had a coat in the store that had 75% recycled wool. Out of that, 30% was theory scraps.
Yes.
For fall of 25, there's a few colors, a new style that will be in the store. Again, the same process. So what else can we be doing with the scraps that we make is really the question. That's wool. What other wools could we be doing? What other fibers could we be doing this with? It's like it's one way to keep things rolling.
I think, yes, I think circularity is very important, and the approach that a brand has to have is towards this kind of practices, to make the young generation believing in a different world, in a world where we have to throw away less garments, where we have probably to produce less, where we have to produce better. It's not only circularity, it's performance, it's produce something that can last for other generations. But of course, circularity is a very important word, but of course we have to do in a serious way, because when you import old material, when you import scraps that you don't know really well, because can be like 20 years old, can be 30 years old, they can be 10 years old, you have really to know all the composition. You have to divide the old scrap into different groups because of colors, because of composition. You have to test because of the chemical restriction. It's a very, very complicated job. We do since more than 80 years because of our people, because of our artisan that really has been working there for more than 40, 50 years. And it's a very, very serious, and it's not easy.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. So, Indre, talk to me about the Circularity Project. Why did you start it?
So the focus of the Circularity Project is on the designers and the design stage. So when we have all mention different sort of nodes in this ecosystem, right? So the focus of the Circularity Project is on the design side. And the reason for that is not only because I love design and have worked alongside and with and for and as in sort of the design capacity, but I went back to grad school at Columbia Climate School a few years ago, and I was sitting in a class on the circular economy, and there was a statistic in the classroom that was sort of literally just brushed over. 80 to 90% of a garment's environmental footprint is set at the design stage, and they moved on. And I was like, wait, hold on. 80 to 90%
Big number.
at the design stage. And I just kept thinking, but I never knew that. I actually called up designer friends and saying, did you know this? And they're like, what's circular? What do you've lost your mind. I mean, I probably had taken too many climate physics problem sets at that point to get much credibility at that stage. But it was really about this idea that design is a superpower and that it has the ability not to be this limiting constraint, but sort of break open this creative challenge for the industry. And it's not to mean that all the responsibility sits with the designers either. Like we've said and everyone has said, it has to be a collaborative system, but if we can activate and empower and educate that node in the system, then it makes everyone's work more exciting and easier, and designers have amazing creativity and are often thinking wonderful things outside the box. And so why not, give some love and attention to that part of the process? And so that's really where the Circularity Project works and focuses on. And
So you work with companies to try to teach and educate.
so we work both with companies, and so we do some sort of hand-holding and advising, but also we do programming and activations and community building events for designers, because it really, there's the work that needs to be done at individual levels and challenges, but without a systems-wide approach, it's just silos. And this is one challenge that just can't be solved in silos. So
Absolutely.
that it's really also about connecting cross-disciplinary, cross industries, across brands. Can we create pre-competitive conversations? Can we share knowledge? Can we share materials? And that's the big question for us.
This is a really, really important point. All of them are really important points, but the fact that it's so critically important to have, what you're doing and what all the sustainability initiatives that we've talked about and at all the other good talks, really part of the organization, have it become part of the thinking. So the more we're educating people, the more they'll be able to think about it as they're creating whatever their job is. It could be merchandising, it could be, trim buying, it could be, fabric buying, production, it could be anything, but to really have it as part of the thinking, which I think is, if we really want to start to make change, that's one of the important areas. And what you're doing is with design, which I think is really another good place. Thank you. Natalie, so tell us all about, your brand, Alabama Chanin.
So we are working in the state of Alabama. We're as north and as west as you can go and still be in the state of Alabama. Our little community was known as the T-shirt capital of the world right up until NAFTA was signed. And I went back in 2000 to start the work that has become Alabama Chanin. And by that point, almost all of the factories, everything, it was a vertical community. The cotton was grown, gin, spun, knit, cut, sewn, the whole thing, all the way through the line. And, I went back to do just a small project. We were working with some quilters, and, 25 years later, I'm still there. And, it's just been a whole journey. Part of it, when we first started, most of the women who were working with us were between 40 and 80. And so we realized really early that these skills were dying in our community. And so we started like an educational program for training younger people to come up in that. And then we were working originally with recycled T-shirts and realized also that there was some carbon implication from the work that we were doing, that maybe it was better to work with farmers and with organic cotton. So today we have an unbroken supply chain of U.S. cotton from Texas to North Carolina, North and South Carolina, and then comes to us in Alabama. So it's really hard, to get that fabric made, and so we're very, we take really good care of it and try to use as much as we can. And we, as I was saying, we have some zero waste program where we use small cuts back into garments, but we need great partners too. There's always smaller pieces that can't be, so it's definitely a work in progress. But yeah, so we work a lot in education, and one of the things that's a little bit different about what we do is we've been collecting oral histories from textile workers since the time. A lot of the people who worked in those factories have passed away by now, and so we've been trying to document the importance of this work in that community, and really want to work with young people to try and reinstill the idea of this work in America, right?
Do you have a lot of young people you're working with? Are you finding that there's interest, that they really want to do this? I mean, what's the reaction you're getting?
Yes. I mean, we definitely have folks now coming out of college who really only want to work in sustainable design, and I think that is something relatively new and really exciting. We're just getting started. I mean, I hope this is the work. We've been at this 25 years. I hope this is the work of another 25 and another 25 after that. But, I can talk about this for a long time. So
Well,
you may know.
Actually, I think it's important to talk about it as much as we can, because what you had said to me when I spoke to you on the phone that really caught my attention, and you mentioned it at the last time you mentioned, it's the last time you were talking, you basically have a 100% United States supply chain, and that you are a seed to seed. So that was like, wow, seed to seed. It's like, so how do you do that? If you manufacture it and then you sell it and then do you get it back? I mean, how do you operate that?
I mean, the seed to seed is definitely aspirational. I mean, we work really. Generally, you could, because our fabrics are all 100% organic cotton, you could, in theory, you could compost it.
Yourself.
Yeah.
I
mean, there are small bits of things that have not been resolved, like how we apply patterns to the fabric. So we don't apply any pattern to the fabric until we've designed into it, or we're making a collection, and we do that through hand painting. So we have a whole studio of young people who are learning how to apply patterns to fabric. And the paints, there needs to be, in my opinion, like for this to really come full circle, to really get to seed, there needs to be some partnerships with science. There needs to be some chemistry. There's some chemistry things that are missing, just in the dyes that are being used and the paints that are being applied. But generally, I mean, we're about as close as I don't think you could find another organization that has a more U.S.-based supply chain than we have.
Yeah. Seems very much so.
I mean, we buy some fabric. We have to buy some yarns from overseas because there's no machineries left in the U.S. to spin some long staple fibers. So, one of our goals would be to get some of this machinery back in the country, so that, like, a lot of the cotton that's being grown in California is long staple but can't be processed here. So we need some machinery, we need science, we need partnerships with designers and like big picture thinkers who can solve some of these problems with us.
That's great. Well, conversation, who do you know? Who else can you meet? Expand, that's what this is all about. Anyway, thank you, Natalie. So Marco, Tell us more about, I know that you've done a lot of life cycle assessments on your recycled fiber because you've really focused on sustainability and your company over the last number of years. As I said, this is not just new. This is, you've been doing this forever. So talk about more of the science of what you've been doing.
Yes, I believe that it's not only to be circular that states that you are sustainable or states that you are better than others. I think that in order to be able to produce something...
Can you hear back there? You can, okay.
I believe that in order to be really good in what you are doing and really be able to give your name to the brands and to the stakeholders, you need to prove about your production. You need to give to the brands, to the people, you need to give the real impact of your production, of your fibers, of your yarns, of your fabrics, of your garment makers. In order to do this, the industry has to give scientific approach to the business. Means that you have to be able to measure all your single steps of the production and to be able to prove with LCA, with EPD certification, all your impacts. With our M-wool, with our M-cashmere.
Explain what M-wool and M-cashmere is
Yes.
so everybody understands.
Yes. We create a name of our wool that is different from anybody else's wool, as we are completely traceable. We are completely able to measure all the impacts of this wool on the planet. It means that from raw material to the finishing fabric, we are able, together with the shipment of the fabric, to provide scientifically how is the impact of the production on the environment. So, for example, on the M-wool, usually we are measuring the M-wool, comparing the M-wool with a conventional recycled wool or conventional wool. We are about 90 to 99% less on energy, less on water, less on carbon footprint. So why this? Because all our recycled wool is made in a mechanical way, without use of water, without use on any of chemicals. So it's not dyed, basically. Again, with our M-cashmere, and also we did with the new wool. We are not only talking about recycled wool, but we are also talking about new wool or new cashmere. In this way, we were able to provide with Revive wool, which is our new wool, all the impacts, and to measure towards a conventional new wool. And in this way, also, we are able to supply a wool which is about 45 to 55% less, which gives less impact than a conventional wool. I think all these numbers has created us a confidentiality to our customers. We are supplying millions of our labels around the world. If you find a label of Manteco, means quality, means integrity, means sustainability. So this means a lot to us. We had the mission in our company to create something that was not only sustainable, but was beautiful, something that the fashion would say, yes, I want to buy these clothes from Manteco, and then to discover that also is the best in the world, scientifically proven, sustainable proven, but at the first we need to do something that is really nice, that is really beautiful, by colors, by hand feel. This is what the fashion is requiring. It doesn't mean that it's circular is already good. You have to be circular. You have to be scientifically proven, and you have to make something that is, wow, that is very nice in colors, in the finishing, everything.
Yeah, I think beauty is really a very important part to this. It's like we are making clothes that we want to put on and feel wonderful in.
Yes.
So we need to have them be beautiful, not just checking all these boxes. But, how do we now expand that, the criteria? I think what we're doing with the sustainability conversation and circularity now is expanding the criteria, changing the system, as you said. So like what do we need to have as the criteria moving forward? I think so far you've heard some really interesting things from our panelists. What I'd like to talk about now is, well, how do we scale this? How do we expand what we're talking about? How do we really make it more than a conversation or whatever we're doing now at whatever the range is? So, how do we do that? And that's really a question for all of you.
This is connected, but I wanted something Marco said about beauty, I think is important to keep in mind in the broader sustainability conversation. I think one thing that when we think about a sustainable product, and I use sustainability as this broad catch-all word. I don't, I'm not a huge fan of the word itself, but if we think of it as this overarching umbrella, a product that is designed checking boxes that nobody wants, that's not desirable, is not sustainable because it actually ends up as waste.
Good point.
And so I think that that's something that we have to think about in terms of the intentionality of what we make and thinking about its inputs, but also how it will interact in the world and its use case, because ultimately it has to be wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And then to answer your question about to scale, I think one thing that we need to think about, I think there's two things really. One is value, and that value proposition, both to brands and to designers, but also to the end consumer. How do we drive that understanding of the value of, if someone's making clothes, of treating the raw materials as a reusable input rather than a single pass-through input that we don't think about at the end, and really that value of reuse and longevity and how to drive that. And from the consumer angle, it's sort of how do you drive value, how do you drive that psychological value of relationship, of something that lasts a long time, of something that you want to keep using and keep reimagining for yourself. One of my favorite examples of a circular brand is a denim brand that a friend of mine, Anna Foster in London, designs, called ELV Denim, and she creates them using all denim, which is a very resilient raw material, but
I love what she does.
Yeah, she's great. But it's very resource intensive to make. But once you've made it, it's a very durable, reusable by design material. And so she takes denim that is destined for landfill and recreates jeans that are meant to sort of fit our current trends, and they look great, and some of them have visible patchwork. And she has a studio in London where you can come and get it repaired and you can get it reworked. But one of my favorite examples of a little design detail that she showed me is creating a very generous seam, like seam
Really?
allowance. And if you think about it, why not? Why wouldn't every pair of jeans have a very generous seam allowance? Because we change over time. Maybe our bodies change. Maybe the trends change. Maybe we want it to come in, to come out. We want, and instead of treating it as every time I'm going to buy a new pair of jeans to fit changes in trends or lifestyle or whatever it may be, I can have this material work for me. And so I love that very simple little example of where design can be powerful, and it doesn't add a lot of cost. It doesn't change the customer's experience with the product. It is just an opportunity to continue reusing, and that value in that, which I like.
I think that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I do love what she does. Anyway, Natalie.
Lovely. I just keep going back to education, and just because our work is so much about manufacturing, like the process of manufacturing and being, connected to the labor. I feel like we really have to invest in that, and we invest in that in communities. And so I feel like, we were talking before about bringing craft and trades back into grade schools, making it visible in high schools, allowing people to see, this as a viable future job, economically, that we are honoring these roles that people play in bringing things to our communities and our nations.
And that's what you're doing.
I mean, we are trying. Yes, I think this is the good work of taking good design and then implementing that. And then when you pair that with people who are really smart in the science part of it, and you bring the whole thing together, then you truly have like that seed to seed or soil to soil.
And with more education, and people can see this, then they're going to be even be more interested. I find that when people are told what is, like whenever I speak to a consumer and I'm telling them the history of something, they get so excited. And it's almost like, wow, I love that. I didn't know. Now I'm more interested. It's because it's not just picking up a garment and putting it on. I'll never forget, we were doing a presentation, a product knowledge presentation to some people, and somebody said, I know Courtney will remember this, somebody said, oh, I just thought you just took a piece of fabric and you made it. It's like, yeah, let's talk about where the fabric came from. Let's talk about how that got there. It's like they don't think about it because it's not in their realm. It's not what they think about. But the more you educate and bring it to them, the customer, I'm saying, then I find that the awareness grows and there's more interest. Yeah. And, especially when you even want to talk about, farmers, which I think is an interesting conversation too.
And partnerships between farmers and mills, I mean, after NAFTA, we lost a tremendous amount of mills in America, third generation family mills were spread out all across the Southeast and beyond, and they're a lot. Many are gone forever, or it feels that way, but maybe because we're having these conversations and thinking about it, maybe there are ways to bring those back, right? I'm very hopeful, ever optimist.
Optimism is great. Thank you. Marco, what do you think about how can we scale this?
Yes, I think that the most important thing is to create in the new generation a new vibe of going into the store and look at a garment and go with your telephone, with your iPhone, with your Samsung and say, and have the possibility to trace the garment. Means that when you go there, you look at the price, you look at the composition, but maybe you want to look at where this garment is coming from, the name of the company, the name of the fabric supplier, the name of the raw material supplier, the name of the weaving. And this is so important for the transparency and for the culture, because I believe that anybody should know why that garment costs €200 or €100 or €2,000, sorry, in dollars, $2,000, because this is very, very transparent towards your final customers. And this will help the brands to be more responsible and the people to be attractive also, that the way the garment is done, that the way the garment is designed. Right now, there is not so many legislation that helps or obliging, and they helps to oblige the brands to do that. But I believe this will be a good point to turn around the business in a more conscious business and in a good, fair quality and price as well, because sometimes maybe you can find a garment that is $100 that is more concrete, is better than a garment that is $2,000, $3,000. And in this way, we can scale the business because we can give a total different meaning to the fashion. Right now, the fashion is a little bit tired of, I believe, of the same way to show the garments, to show the bags. Everything is, if you put up the price, you are in that level of high-level business. But maybe it's not true. Maybe it is not the truth of everything. So let's the customer decide. Let's the customer know everything about the garment. This, I believe, will be a big changement into the fashion. And, this is another thing is to be able to go around. We have created the Manteco Academy. We have about 3 different people going around the world to talk to the university, to talk to the new students, to the new designer about circular economy, about new kind of design for the circular fashion. In this way, we are trying to create interest into the new generation of designers. And we are going to all around Europe. We are going to also New York, Los Angeles. Students are coming in our company. We give them for free a part of our yards, meters of fabrics. They have to try. And we have to put up the culture. This is, I believe, is very important. And
I think this is wonderful, what you're talking about, what, Natalie, you were talking about in Indre, because you've heard education from all of them. And that's really what we're doing here, is we're endeavoring to educate ourselves and others. And I think education's an incredibly large portion of it. And we talked about education in different ways, which I kind of think is a very good conversation. We have Pratt here, from Dean Sideway and students. So I think we've got a really fertile ground, so to speak, for really helping to move the circularity conversation forward. We also, I think, we talked about, how we could be talking to the customer about it a little bit more, or how, the denim brand is adding, larger seam allowances, which I think is a brilliant idea. How you're focusing on the community, and everything that Marco was just talking about. So I think there's an awful lot of meat here in the conversation that we've just had. I have one last question that it's like, how do we now really have the consumer get involved? I know we talked about, what we could be doing with them. And we talked a little bit about, what we could be doing to entice them. I've mentioned talking to them. How do we want the consumer to be thinking about this? Everybody.
I mean, we have to make it sexy. We have to make it, that's part of what
Exactly.
the fashion industry does. It's so good at making things aspirational and telling stories. And I think a lot of this comes down to the stories we tell and how we frame them.
I think it's a good point. I know for myself personally, it's like when I see something and I'm so inspired, it's like, oh my God, I've got to have it. Or I really need to learn about that. Or I get really curious. So I think bringing curiosity to the consumer. Natalie, what do you think?
I mean, I love this idea of making things visible, because I think a lot of the work that goes on behind the scenes, is not really visible to the consumer. And I think if we can make these things visible, it makes you value a T-shirt more when you see the face of the person that made it, or you have lunch next to them in the
I agree.
in the downtown area, or you meet them at the post office. I think we start to value our food, when we meet our farmers. We start to value our clothing more when we know who made it. And, I think the same is true of shelter. So
I think people really do want to know, so I think that's
Yeah.
really, really important. Marco, do you have any other comments on this?
I believe that it's very important, the true storytelling of the product. So during the COVID, I think our meal before the COVID was a meal, was a strong meal. But then when our production was completely off, we started thinking about creating, beside the scientific approach, a storytelling that go beyond the fabric, go beyond the clothes, a true storytelling based on true numbers and scientific numbers. I think that this is the key of the brands, this is the key of the business, to be able to tell what is behind. I believe this is going to be the very important point. But we are doing this, for example, with Theory. We are doing this with many other brands.
You are.
Yes. So we became a brand in the brand. Our label is very important for the brand itself. And I'm so happy to help the people to realize about that fabric, that clothes, why it's made in that way. This is going to be the present, but it's also the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for this
you.
conversation. It has been a real pleasure talking to all three of you. I just love the different perspectives that we've heard and the different conversations. I think it's really, really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to for the next portion, I'd like to hand it off to Sarah, who's going to talk about the relationship and the partnership with Pratt.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Hello, everyone. Oh, my gosh. I'm Sarah. I'm from the CFDA, and I work on our education and sustainability work. And I just want to thank you all for being here on behalf of the CFDA and Theory. This collaboration that started almost exactly a year ago has been an incredible journey. Thank you, Wendy, Stephanie, Maddie, Courtney. You do incredible work at Theory, and that you've shared your circle and that we're growing the circle together is really incredible. And to Indre, Natalie, and Marco for that inspiring idea exchange. It was so wonderful to hear learning and education be mentioned. And I think back to really exactly 52 weeks ago, I was so excited that this journey was beginning. And I turned to my right when I arrived and sat down and saw my dear friend, Dean, who is the professor of fashion at Pratt Institute. And here we are, 4 sessions later, and you have catalyzed, I think, the vision of Good Talks, which is transforming into good work. I am so excited to see you share the work that you and your students have created. And I just want to say what an honor it is to be introducing Dean and to speak on behalf of all educators who are really in the studio working hand in hand with the future change champions. You see the importance of instilling the understanding of design decision at scale. Indre was speaking about that statistic of 90% happening in the design choice phase. And so to be able to work on collections, whether it's 10 or 100 in some cases, you're really putting that into proof of concept. And when we talk about circularity here this evening, I want to highlight that it's been said by, I think, the Apparel Impact Institute that through design interventions that employ sustainability, whether it's reuse or take back or repair, we can really make a powerful, tangible intervention to greenhouse gas emissions. So decarbonization targets can be met by 40% or more by design decisions. The metrics, Wendy, that you called out regarding waste, and I think almost 85% of all textiles go to landfill. That can be changed through the power of design. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And please, if you know each other, talk to each other, work with each other. And if you don't know each other, as Wendy highlighted, get to know each other. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Dean Sidaway from Pratt.
Hello, everyone. Oh, stand back. I suddenly got really nervous. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm not very good at ad-libbing, so I have notes on a card. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the discussion as well. That was really inspiring and interesting. We're delighted to be here during Earth Month with you, and thank you so much to Theory for the space to share this special collaboration between Pratt, Institute's MFA Fashion Collection and Communication, and to theory. This project gave our students the opportunity to work with real-world constraints using dead stock and sample fabrics generously shared by theory. I keep pointing at Wendy, but everyone. Yes, everyone. The work you see here is the result of the students' thoughtful experimentation, collaboration, and commitment to more sustainable practices. And a sincere thank you to Sarah Kozlowski. We've known each other for over a decade now, and I'm so grateful for this connection and for you creating these opportunities for students in your continued support of fashion education with the CFDA. To the team at Theory, Wendy, Stephanie, Maddie, everyone else who's been really helpful and generous with their time. Thank you for this opportunity to work with you, for your time, your mentorship, and your generosity. This has been a really valuable experience for the students, and your feedback has played a real role in shaping their work, and we're very grateful. Thank you to Pratt Institute's Dean of the School of Design, Anita Cooney. I'm not sure where Anita is in here, somewhere in here. Hi, thank you so much. And to our chair, Lisa Z. Morgan, over there. And ultimately to our MFA students. Congratulations. You've taken a complex brief, navigated the realities of collaboration, and produced work that's rooted in purpose, shaped by inquiry, and driven by collective values. We are proud of you, and this is the work that is here. I will, thank you. If the MFA students could just stand up so that we can kind of just be, so you can be seen. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work. Essentially, I will keep this really brief. I know there are cocktails at the back, so. So yeah, the work you see behind you is the work of the MFA students. This is the first year of the first cohort of the MFA Fashion Collection and Communication. We put the students, just to let you know that it's important to note that the students that we have join us on the MFA, it's not required that they've majored in fashion. So we actually have students from fashion backgrounds, but equally from various other backgrounds outside of fashion. So we group the students together. We have 12 students currently. We group them together into 4 groups of 3. So the work you see behind us here, as I said, is all repurposed from theory fabrics and garments, damaged garments. And so the collections here are from the students from that. Just to briefly say, the MFA Fashion Collection and Communication program encourages students to use fashion as a way to communicate ideas about the world around them. Through research and making, students develop a thoughtful design practice that sees fashion as both craft and form of social commentary. And after the event, the looks will go into one of the windows for 1 week, supported by a short film created by the partnership from Theory. Please send colleagues and friends to come and view the work. And as we move into the cocktails, I really, and again, saying what Sarah and Wendy both said, I encourage you all to take a moment to chat with the students. They've so much to share with you. And thank you for being here, and enjoy your evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Council of Fashion Designers of America. Thank you so much for partnering with us on this. So please go and mingle and learn and create and ideate and have some cocktails.